James Campbell or Joseph Campbell? No, I never heard of Joseph. So Joseph Campbell was he was a professor, and he basically studied all stories from myths and legends and mythology and all kinds of things like that, and basically found there's a fourfold pattern, right? There's a call to action. Something happens in your life, and you get pulled out of your story, your comfort zone, and you get thrust into a new one. And then you go through trials and tribulations, and then you hit your abyss. You hit that moment where you're like, I have to do something. I can either wallow in pity, or I can make a choice to move on. And then you have a transformation. You come out on the other side with what they call the elixir of life, and it's what you can give back, right? It's how you change as a result. So I just find it, one, thank you, and I commend you for the courage to share your story, because vulnerability is the key, right? And so when we talk about CrossFit, actually what Brave Enough is about is living a better story, right? So you have the American story that's kind of been, it's like, hey, you are kind of athletic and, as you're growing up, and then maybe you play sports in high school, probably not if you're like me, you were a one-sport athlete, because I was terrible at football. I only got the jersey because I thought girls would date me, so. And then the percent of athletes get smaller as you go to college, and then what happens? You graduate from college, or you just go into the workforce, you work a ridiculous amount of hours, you really don't have enough money to support yourself or do anything outside of that. Let's talk about drinking and our culture and how all that kind of stuff goes. You get to your career, you start having a family. The next thing you know, you look in the mirror, you're 40 years old, and you're like, well, what happened to my body? And you get this idea, and it's been perpetuated that, like, human beings just fall apart. To be perfectly honest, I was at the VA once, and a doctor looked at me, and he's like, yeah, when you get old, your shoulders, they just get crappy. And I was like, is this really happening? Like, is this really your thought process, right? So CrossFit's been really good about retraining people to understand that, like, no, if you take care of your body, it will last, right? Just before we get into that, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. So I was an Oak Park graduate in 2003. Oak Park, right? Northland. So, 10 days later, I was standing on yellow footprints at MCRD San Diego. So I joined the Marine Corps, being an infantry Marine, right in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan. I got selected for presidential security while I was in boot camp. I went through all these processes, psychological evaluations, which I don't know how I got through that, but ended up doing all that. I spent 2 years at Camp David doing personal security for President Bush. After that, I requested to be deployed. Attached to the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines in country in Al-Qaim, Iraq, and spent time doing counter-IED operations. IEDs are improvised explosive devices. So we would go out on patrol, and basically we would put sensors in the ground and monitor enemy movement and try to stop them from hurting my Marines, right? So did some time there. Got out, worked with some nonprofits like Young Life. Anybody heard of that? Young Life Kids in here? Yep, awesome. And then a couple other things, Warriors Ascent, things like that. So got out of the Marine Corps for a while, and then went to the VA because I was having problems. My back was seizing up. I literally was getting muscle, I got out of bed one day, my back seized up, I literally fell over, hit my head on my desk. Luckily my phone fell, I was able to call my mother, and she came to my house and picked me up, drove me to the hospital. I had to get 9 injections of steroids and muscle relaxers in my back. Turns out I had a compression fracture, so from 4 years of carrying 100 plus pounds of gear up and down mountains, wore my spine down a little bit, and so it was affecting me. And basically I'm 22 years old, and a doctor looks at me, he's like, hey, you need to hang your boots up like you're done. And I was like, oh, heck no, techno. I was like, no, this isn't gonna happen. I like being active. So I started looking around and started doing my research. I just decided I wasn't gonna let that be my story. I wasn't just gonna stop. So I stumbled upon CrossFit.com one day, and I looked at this, and I was traditionally bodybuilding because that's all I knew at the time, because that's kind of what people think. When most people think like exercise, what do you think? You think about people standing in front of a mirror like flexing and doing isolation exercises, and like CrossFit's the exact opposite. We want to make you functional. You are designed to move certain ways, and we optimize that by adding weight and doing like speed and things like that, and I'll teach you all about that and stuff in a minute. But so I went and I did my first CrossFit workout, failed miserably. It was terrible. And I was a bigger Marine. I had gone back in the Marine Corps. And I was like looking around, and people were looking at me, and I'm like trying to do this exercise where I'm holding a bar over my head and I'm squatting down, and it's just not happening, right? But I watched the video 10 minutes earlier, and this like literally 120-pound girl was doing the exact same thing. And I was like, this is ridiculous. there's something to this, right? And honestly, after that, I never looked back. I got my CrossFit Level 1 certification a year and a half later. I went in the Marines to Wounded Warrior Battalion out in Camp Pendleton, California in 2011, and actually took CrossFit to Wounded Warrior. So I had Marines who had been blown up by IEDs, who had traumatic brain injuries, were missing limbs. And what the wonderful thing about CrossFit is you can adapt it to anybody. I just taught a class this morning at another facility where I have my founding members while we're waiting for Brave Enough to open up, and I have a 65-year-old couple in there. And literally before that, they were the typical 65-year-old couple, like sitting on the couch, watching TV. They're not active at all. And apparently the story is they looked at each other one day and they're like, we don't want to live this story anymore. Like, we don't want this to be the rest of our life. And so they walked into a CrossFit gym one day, and now they're there every day. And it's awesome to watch them move. They're strong. They're actually really, really good. Even though they'll tell you, they always come to me like, oh, Anthony, I don't know how I did. I'm like, you did awesome. Like, this is so good. Yes, you didn't do as much weight as I did, but it's okay. Or as the person next to you. And so we'll get into talking about CrossFit. Like, what is it, just so you guys understand. So if I was just to tell you what CrossFit is, the definition is constantly varied functional movements at high intensity. So we constantly vary our program, so your body never adapts. And we do functional movements, so you'll never see anybody do a bicep curl. You'll never see anybody doing like lat pull downs. We do pull-ups, we do squats, right? We do deadlifts and presses. These are all multi-joint, multi-muscle movements, because anything you do in real life is a multi-muscle movement, right? So why would you ever isolate it? Right? And we do this in all these different combinations for different periods of time, because you have these things called energy pathways in your body. It's how your body creates energy. So you'll do short workouts, really intense. You'll do longer workouts with low intensity, and we just mix it up. And the greatest thing is we were created for community. So you get to do this with your friends, and everybody's doing the same workout. And the cool thing is I can be doing a workout, a Marine, right? You can have a Navy SEAL, and then you can have a grandmother in the exact same class. And they're doing the exact same workout. You just scale it to their ability level. So it's really awesome, and it challenges people to push past, because, like every, business leader says, like, the people you surround yourself with, and that's who you become. So we try to get people to surround themselves with people who want to become better, because again, it's all about living a better story. Bravery is looking adversity in the eye. And every day you come into Brave Enough and you come into a CrossFit gym, it's that hero's journey all over again. And that's what I love about it. That's why I named it Brave Enough, is because you literally come in and you're all like having fun, and then you look at the workout and you're like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that. Even this morning, it was really funny. I put the workout on the board and everybody was like, nope, not doing that. There's no way. And then clock starts, and all of a sudden they do it. And they go through their own head and like what's going on, and they just keep doing the movement. They keep chipping away. They keep looking the workout in the eye and just keep moving forward. And then what happens? Eventually it's over. They get done. And they just taught themselves a lot about themselves, right? They just learned that really, no matter what's in front of you, if you're brave enough and you just keep moving forward, you're going to accomplish it, right? It just may take some time, and it may be painful, but everything good comes out of pain, right? Just like you said. So, yeah. So that's what Brave Enough is. I guess that kind of sums it up, right? Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to answer them. And I mean, you can ask me anything. Go ahead.